Greetings and welcome to In-Depth. I'm Dike Rostant. TECU Credit Union Cooperative Society Limited was founded in 1946 by Father Maurus Maingot. Now celebrating 77 years, this year they have a great deal to be proud of. We are joined by President of the Board, Sandra Matthews-Noel, and Chief Executive Officer, Brian Tangwell. And we say greetings to both of you. And let's start off from the ground up. CEO, give us an idea, please, in terms of the difference between a credit union cooperative and a bank, please.
Okay, so thanks a lot for having us, DK. So, this month it's very auspicious and propitious that we're having this. This month is actually Credit Union Month, and last week was Credit Union Day, last week Thursday. So the financial system has been around for a little while. Actually, banking has been around since the 18th century BCE in Mesopotamia. I think now it's Iraq, Kuwait, and Turkey. So banking has been around for a while. The first registered bank in the US was in 1791. So banking has been around for a while. Financial services, therefore, is something that we're all familiar with. And the credit union movement started sometime later. But let me just I isolate the difference by telling you what banks are. So both of them are financial institutions. Both of them offer savings and loans. Banking has been around for a lot longer. Banking is fairly sophisticated now with a lot more diverse product offerings. But banks are for-profit organizations. So banks are owned primarily by its investors. And they own the bank, and net profit ideally always reverts back to the investors. Credit unions started sometime later on. Actually, the first credit union was started in 1852. So credit unions are not for-profit. So that's the first and major difference. Banks are for-profit. Credit unions are not for-profit. And ideally, it's operated under a set of principles, the least of which are it's democratically controlled. All net surpluses redound back to all of the shareholders. So it's owner-owned, and all of our shareholders own the credit unions. So credit unions primarily offer the range of services, not as much as the banks. They have some pretty high-end stuff, letters for credit, bills for collection, brokerage accounts, things like that. And but credit unions offer that feel of ownership, and all our owners are our members. So they benefit from lower rates, lower fees, better returns. As I said before, all of the returns typically go back to them. So because it's owner-owned, because it's owned by the members, there's that level of benefit. And that's a major difference between the two.
Thank you so much. And let's bring you in, President Matthews-Noel. In terms of, in 1947, TECU had their first loan approved. It was $50 for the purchase of a baby pram. Now, what are some of the things that you are proud of in recent memory, possibly even during your tenure at the helm of the Board of Directors?
Thank you, Dike. As a matter of fact, we were founded in 1946. September the 9th, to be precise. And yes, the first loan was for a pram. But as you know, the needs and wants of the small man or the middle-income man, from which the credit union really provides the service, their needs go way, way beyond that. And TECU in its formation back then was really to try to give loans at an affordable rate for productive purposes. We took our members out of the hands of the money lenders who were trying to, as you would say, make our members sell their souls to them. And we took them to a place where they got a fair return on their investments, which would have been their shares that they would have deposited, and a fair interest rate by which they can increase and improve their standard of living. Over the years, TECU has been a pioneer in the credit union movement, having our own insurance agency, our own travel agency, because we saw the need for these very important aspects of life for our members. But as we come into the 2023s down to our 2027, we have even more fabulous goals and aspirations to meet the needs of our members. So I would say one of the most important things that we've done within recent times was to enhance our technological offerings to our members by digital, online, and of course, a lot more services being offered to them for both their loans and their insurance, medical, you name it. We have been able to support and create the opportunities for our members.
And in terms of that support for members and against the context that Mr. Tangwell said, yes, not for profit, but at the same time, your at TECU is really operating with a level of asset or an asset base that one should be proud of. So I'll let you toot that horn, please, Ms. Matthews-Noel.
Oh, of course. And it's really something to be proud of, I can say, from $3.46 that we would have started there to over $2.4 billion and heading towards that $2.5 billion asset base. Yes, it is an achievement. And when we talk about an achievement, it is not for want of saying that it is all classes of society. It's the people of modest means that would have brought about this growth and our asset fielding, going from property to investments, even from the standpoint of owning and kind of crafting their educational needs. All of those aspects are what we are about, not for profit, but for service.
And even in terms of that service, and thank you for that, Mr. Tangwell, who would the membership comprise of in the main? Because started off by a priest in 1946, then there was a name change. I can't remember the name change, well, the year, but there was a bit of TECHU in the name. So there have been changes, but what stands? Where do you draw the membership from in the main?
Yeah, so one of the peculiarities of credit unions are primarily community-based. So you'll find that every credit union has a common bond, whether it's a community, a workplace, a religion. So there's that kind of commonality. So when TECU Credit Union would have started, it would have started in 1946, as the president mentioned. And primarily, the acronym TECU tells you exactly where it's from, Texaco Employees Credit Union. So it was out of the bowels of the energy sector that the credit union itself was born. It did go through several changes, and we started to open up the membership. So TECU now is one of the few open credit unions in Trinidad and Tobago. So you don't particularly have to belong to a particular geographic area or religion or employment base. We've opened up. And as a matter of fact, there was a concentration risk coming out of that Texaco energy sector period. But now the mainstay of our membership is actually in the public service. So 14% of the membership actually resides in the public service. So we've spread through the length and breadth, and we've outgrown our encashment areas. So primarily, again, we were south because we follow the energy belt. So we started in Pointe-a-Pierre, then there's Point Fortin and Couva. But now our members spread east, the east-west corridor, north-west. So we really span the length and breadth of Trinidad and Tobago. And especially, as President mentioned, because we've tried to diversify our product offerings and the health plan, investments and stuff like that, that's kind of what draws the membership to TECU. So we're an open bond now, open for business to all and sundry.
And we want to talk about that continued evolution, that continued opening, that continued level of service when we return. Stay with us. We come back with more. Welcome back. We are speaking about credit unions, specifically TECU, with CEO Brian Tangwell and the president of the board, Sandra Matthews-Noel. And looking at that point that we closed off on in terms of the way that services are expanding, there are still some challenges to that. And Mr. Tangwell, I wanted to speak to that a little bit, please, in terms of what are some of the things we need to look at in terms of governing legislation and challenges possibly to the current playing field, seeing where this sort of financial institution has come from and where you would like to take it, because President also talked about dreams and aspirations.
The
So,
Minister
Mr.
of Finance
Tangwell?
in the budget speech would have spoken to the fact that the credit union legislation is something that's being looked on right now. To set up an independent authority to be the chief regulator for the credit union sector. But I would tell you that our legislation is in dire need of an overhaul. Our legislation commenced in 1971. It was revised 4 times, the latest one being in 1993, that primarily focused on some additional powers for the Commission of Cooperatives for the cessation of certain societies. But there is a need to upgrade our legislation. You've talked about the evolution for financial services. Currently, right now, even the banking sector is being overhauled and evolving towards offering fintech type arrangements, fintech being financial technology. So there's a partnering of traditional financial banking together with financial technology to provide a greater one-stop shop for the clients, and in the case of the credit unions, the membership. There has been some recent legislation that's been upgraded within our region. Barbados in 2010, the Jamaicans, even though they started in 1950, they have gone severely ahead of the market to the extent where in 2020, they were given the power to operate foreign accounts and deal in foreign currency, things of that nature. So there is that need for us to evolve, and the credit union sector in Trinidad needs to evolve to be able to offer to the membership that level of flexibility that we want, because we've traditionally grown from the Gen X and Gen Ys into now this Gen Z, which requires a lot more services, a lot more mobile technology, a lot more functionality. And there's that nimbleness that the current legislation does not allow. So hopefully with the advent of impending legislation and the expanding of services, we are going to be evolving to include additional services that we'll be able to offer the membership that will reach into investment services, property management, insurance, as President mentioned, fintech, financial technology as well. So hopefully that is the way that we're going. And we need to be able to do that, to diversify our income streams to provide some level of insulation for the vagaries of this financial sector.
And in terms of reading and spelling for me, Mr. Tangwell, give me that, I don't want to say low-hanging fruit, but is there also the situation that you are only, as a credit union, only able to offer these services to members as opposed to someone being able to come from off the street? Everything is lined up, they have all the papers, ducks in a row, but if they're not a member, they can't just access your services?
Yeah, so if you think about it, right? So the credit unions were actually built out of the need for the underserved and the unserved. So when that first credit union started in 1952, for example, it was primarily because there was a famine in Germany. And the farmers and those people corollary to the agro-industry couldn't access financing at all. So the credit union movement started in that area to be able to give credit to the farmers. And that was in 1852. That is basically where our DNA is. So we are built to look for the underserved and the unserved. The credit union is a perfect vehicle for the MSEs and the MSMEs in the country. We talk about entrepreneurial growth, and we talk about that entrepreneurial spirit. That's what we're born to do. But the legislation does not allow us to be able to do that. So, for example, you talked about the membership. Our members must be single individuals. So to be a member, you must be an entity and a person. The credit union legislation doesn't necessarily entertain business entities. So notwithstanding the fact that we are engaged in business lending for sole traders and small businesses, We have to be able to grow, to expand, to be able to service that entrepreneurial need and do small business loans, engage in small business financing, innovate to be able to provide that level of one-stop shop for all of those elements as well. So part of the growth element is not only for the membership, and you need to become a member, yes, but membership is not restrictive. Membership for the open credit unions, and there are a few of us around, could be you applying, and the rigor is very much the same as what obtains for the commercial banks. You need to be able to show evidence of where you live, so utility bills, IDs, job letters, salary slips, typical onboarding stuff that would be required for the commercial banking sector as well. And to be a member of the credit union, all you need is one share. Remember, you're a shareholder, and a share is as the entry fee into the credit union is one $5 share. So that's all that restricts you to be a member. And once you're a member, you benefit from all of the goods and services that we offer. And one of the key differences to the banks, just to revert back to that, we are engaged in educational programs as well. That's part of our ethos. We must provide that level of education to our members and provide those kind of corollary services as well. So membership is as easy as that.
And it's really empowering individuals, because it's one thing to say, okay, well, yes, you've been able to access this sort of resource, but at the same time, having more capacity to be able to use it in an intentional manner is very important. But the final 2 minutes are yours, Madam President. You were speaking about some of the goals and aspirations. I also want you to bring it home in terms of what that potential future of credit unions can look like for laypersons, people on the ground who may be saying, okay, well, this credit union thing sounding like it making sense,
Absolutely, Dike. And of course, to pivot on what Brian had said, the membership aspect of the credit union means that it's considered a family. And like with everything, family goes from the cradle to the grave. It's all inclusive. So that a credit union thinks about what the member wants, what the member needs, the aspiration. So we have, for the future, looked at ways and means of educating our members, because that is critical. The whole ethos of being on this earth to be able to provide for yourself and your family, you have to make decisions. And in order to make those decisions, you have to be educated. So we don't just lend money. We try to make sure that our members are exposed to education so that they can make better decisions for productive loans, for investments, for the education that they need for their kids. Now, saying all of that is fine. But when we talk about the environment with which we operate, as Brian was alluding to, the legislation of the credit union movement it's very important. Important from the standpoint, we welcome regulatory framework, but we also need that regulation to not stifle the movement. It needs to be able to give us that flexibility to be able to grow, to be able to say, well, okay, our members are parts of this country, and of course, we could like to see the support coming from our government in order to make the credit union movement great. Our legislative committee at TECU has been pivotal in that crusade, I should say, to be able to get the technocrats at central bank, at the government level, to understand what the credit union means to the average citizen of Trinidad and Tobago.
And in terms of helping,
where the member would grow.
And in terms of helping with that growth, I think I almost want to now do like Oliver Twist and ask me I have some more, but we can't do it at this point in time because our conversation has come to its end for this conversation, but hopefully we can do another one. But we want to thank you very much, President of the Board, Sandra Matthews-Noel, as well as CEO, Mr. Brian Tangwell. And on behalf of the entire TTT News team, I'm Dike Rostant. This has been In Depth with me. Thank you so much for joining us.